So, what is object oriented programming? Maybe you have some doubt on that, or even you don't know what it is. So, let's dive into that and see what exactly object oriented programming means. But before that, let's see why actually we need it. So, in a software world, we just want to relate everything with our real world. Why we want to do this? Because in a real world we have various things and we can just distinguish each and everything from each other by looking at the properties of the objects. Yeah, objects. So let's take an example of a book has title, book has cover page, so you can distinguish a particular book among various books just by looking the front page or just reading the title. So object oriented programming gives you a better understanding of every concept because everything is structured and everything tells its behavior, its functionality and its properties. So now let's break down object oriented programming. So we have object, then we have object oriented and object oriented programming itself. Let's talk about the object. Object is anything which is tangible, a tangible something. And what that means? Meaning anything we can touch, or we can touch, feel or simply interact with our senses. That's good. This means every object has some properties like color, size, name, etc. So let's take an example of an object. Bucket is an object and bucket has properties like capacity of the bucket, company of the bucket or the color of the bucket. Great. So what is object oriented? So let's talk about the oriented. Oriented is a movie you need to watch and that's not I'm going to tell you. So let's see. Oriented mean to aiming towards something or direction in which something is aimed. So object oriented means aiming towards object, means treating or realizing almost everything as an object. So object has properties and we interact between the objects via their properties. In an object oriented programming we have some problem. What the problem is, because we are talking about the softwares and software doesn't have any tangible things. We cannot touch, we cannot feel, we cannot smell. So how we are going to do these things? This is interesting. So we know every object has some properties, has data and related behaviors. So that's why this is one of the most famous style of developing a software. With said all these things, the point is how we can do all these things, how we can create an object in a software world. So in a software we have variable where we define our data and we have functions which gives you the behavior or simply the functionality of anything. That's great. So how we can create the object in a software? Simply by creating the skeleton or structure of the object. We know for any object must have their properties, their behaviors. So we can define these things in a structure or skeleton and we call it class. So I think you are getting what is class and what is object. So class is a blueprint of an object. So think about this blueprint. This is the blueprint of a Iron Man suit. If you have this blueprint, you can create as many Iron Man suit as you want, and each suit considered as the object of this blueprint. This blueprint is a class. In this class, everything is defined, the data, the behavior of every object, every section. So that's why you can create any number of object of this, which is Iron Man suit. If you're not getting this, let's understand a class. Whenever we heard the word class, we have in mind which is classroom. So in a classroom, students acts as a data and their behavior is to learn. So in a maths class, the same student has the behavior of learning maths. Similarly, for a physics class, their behavior is to learn physics concept. In this way, we have a two different implementation of the same class and each lecture is an object. So the lecture of maths is an object of our class. The same student is there on a maths class but having behavior of learning maths, and the same student in a physics class having behavior of learning physics concept. Let's take another best example. We have 3 apples here: green apple, yellow apple and red apple. We know all these apples comes under the same class which is called apple. Great. So each apple is an instance, or we can say each apple is an object of our apple class and share same properties but different values. You can see here all these 3 are apple. All these 3 have the property of color but having different values of color. Green apple, then yellow apple, then red apple. All these 3 have the property of weight, but maybe each one has the different values for the weight. So in that way, we have object which having the same properties but with different values. Great. So let's relate this with a real example. Suppose you are given a task to sort the good apple with a bad apple. We know a bad apple has dark patches, doesn't have a proper shape. So you create a class for the green apple. You define the color as the green. You define that if there are the patches, that's not a good apple. So let's remove it. Second is, if it's not a proper shape, just remove it. You fed this software in a machine, then that machine will do the task. But suppose you have given another task to sort good red apple from bad red apple. So do you need to write the same thing again? No, because we already have the class which can distinguish between good and bad apples. We just need to change the color of the apple, or we need to define the color of an apple on red side for red color. Then our program is ready and boom, everything is working absolutely fine. The same program is working for green apple, same program is working for red apples. So this is the way you can have the object oriented programming in software world, so that our software become reusable and easily understandable, so that we can work on a big project with this great concept of object-oriented programming. So in the further episode, I'm going to tell you other terminologies of object-oriented programming, and obviously there is nothing related to any specific language. These are just the core concept you can apply in any language and learn any language very easily. So if you want to know the basics of object-oriented programming like inheritance, polymorphism, anything else, just go and subscribe to this channel and wait for the next episode. And don't forget to hit the bell icon to get instant notification, and like Bitfumes on Facebook, Twitter and Instagram. We will meet in the next episode. Till then, goodbye.